gentleman, to being like a gentleman.
18-year-old Tyler Clementi, freshman at Rutgers University in New Jersey, committed suicide by jumping off the George Washington Bridge
Nearly
last
3
week.
out of every 10 girls in this country is getting pregnant as a teen.
Mavima was driving drunk on May 20th after 4 shots of liquor and some beer, with 4 passengers in his car, all Wyoming Park schoolmates.
People, we are just flat out in a war. And it's not a war for our dollar, it's a war for our souls. And our kids are on the front line.
So for the first time I had sex with her, immediately after I felt terrible.
Peer pressure caused my best friend to leave me.
My girlfriends are saying I'm stupid because I'm not sleeping with my boyfriend.
Emotional day in court as a teen learned his fate for a crash that killed 2 Wyoming students.
He made a mistake, and sending them to prison would just be another mistake.
The father pleaded for the teen to get a second chance. Second chance. Second chance.
You're going to captivate an audience of 1,000 kids, and you're going to do that for 90 minutes. You got to be creative about that.
Now raise your hand, you have a dream.
If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for everything.
This is the best assembly we've ever had. It's a true story.
Dream big dreams, believe in your dreams, and don't let nothing hinder you from believing those dreams.
I actually had a kid come up to me afterward and ask me, where can I get a promise ring? I've been here 12 years. No boy has ever asked that question.
The fact that most people could actually relate to the things that were happening was really good.
There's not one thing that's negative about your group. It's all positive.
I will lift you when you're down, elevate you off the ground. I can turn it all around. It's time to get lifted, break the chains and let you out, elevate you through these clouds, get you to your feet right down. It's time to get lifted. I will lift you when you're down, elevate you off the ground. I can turn it all around. It's time to get lifted, break the chains and let you out, elevate you through these clouds, get you to your feet right down.
Hey everybody, welcome to Hollywood Alive. My name is Todd Coconato. I'm the host of the show. We're so glad that you've joined us today. We are a show that talks about positive things that are happening in Hollywood. Yes, there are some amazing positive things that are happening. I know you guys might hear about some other things, but we're going to highlight the amazing things. People like my guest today by the name of Anthony Preston that's on our show. He has an organization that he has founded and worked with now for some time, and it's called Elevate X, and I'd like to welcome him to this show, Mr. Anthony Preston. Welcome.
How can you ask for a better intro than that?
Well, you know, I could say a lot about you, man, but I'm going to let you actually say some of the stuff that you guys are up to. Of course, you work with young people. You are a positive influence on their lives, telling them, you know, things about abstinence and morality and values. And so why don't you just share a little bit about what's on your heart?
What's on my heart is, if you're a teenager living in today's society, the kind of conundrum that was started when social media became a little bit more far-reaching, things like YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. These were all avenues originally designed for people to be heard. And the funny thing about being heard is that when it's unique when it's like the cutting edge and you're the first person to do it. And then everybody starts doing it, and you get lost in sort of this tidal wave and quagmire of all this different ideology, all these different things that people are trying to tell you to do with yourself, and everybody's trying to keep up with the Joneses in that capacity. So what Elevate does is it kind of helps teens in a very, very critical time of their lives navigate those otherwise murky waters. And there's a lot of mixed messages, as we know, that are out there in the media. If you're a teen today and you're watching this, you know what those challenges are. They range from sex to the hot button issues of things like bullying or waiting until marriage for sex or STDs, or all these different things that are being thrown at you all the time. Not to mention, you're at the critical age of your life. You're trying to figure out who you are, what you stand for, who you're going to be. Are you what your parents said you were? Are you what your baseball coach says you are? Are you more than what your Facebook page and your updating profile say about you? Who are you is really the universal question you are trying to answer as a young person living in pop culture today. So what Elevate does, it says, okay, let's get back to the basics and let's start with here. I find that most things that I've seen, been a part of, enjoyed, and also spoken with and through as a speaker in my tenure have all been things that have sort of been, here's what not to do, young person. Here's what you shouldn't do. Here's what's going to go wrong. Here's how you're going to fail. What Elevate does is we flip the script and say, wait a second. Let's not deal with the issue yet. Let's deal with you. What is your heart? What is your dream? What is your desire? What are you interested in? What are your feelings? What are you going through? And we created this platform, this very elaborate platform for people to be heard. And so Elevate takes a 90-minute show. We take a bunch of people in Hollywood that are young single people that are living this way and say, hey, look, it is possible to live a holistic lifestyle, to do things like wait till marriage, to do things like respect the opposite sex. It is possible to have a career without taking your clothes off all the time, or being part of the casting couch. You actually can achieve all that you have in your heart to achieve. You just need to stay focused. You need a game plan, but mostly you need a movement and a group of mentors that can help you proactively walk these things out, and that's what Elevate does. So we take a 90-minute show that includes music, acting, some illusion, some dynamic speakers. We throw it all together. We get it on a stage in front of 1,000 kids, and we blow their minds. And it's something that they've 90% of the time never seen before.
Yeah, that's some awesome stuff, man. I want to ask a question again, because obviously you're fighting against the current direction that society is kind of going in the aspect of, obviously if you look at almost every television show, so many, movies out there, it's sex and lifestyle that's highlighted that's against basically what you're saying. So what kind of roadblocks do you guys come against in speaking a message of morality and morals?
Well, that's a fabulous question, and here's why. Because I would not say, I used to think that we were competing with the media. What the media is doing is it's a business, Todd. It's trying to make a buck. Okay, so what it's going to do is keep creating content that they know sells. So until somebody says, wait a second, that's all fine and great, but until we start creating an audience that says, wait a second, this also sells, or people actually do want movies about the underdog story. People do actually want movies about pursuing your dreams and doing that without compromise. When Hollywood figures out that there's actually a market out there for that, they'll start making that product. We've started to see that. Years ago, it was like we saw a lot of opposition in that capacity because you're coming up against the big media machine that says, well, we're not going to reinvent the wheel. Okay, well, then we're not going to compete with you either. We're going to take the same skill set, essentially, and not change it, not downplay it, not do things that are less than state of the art or professional. We're just going to we're just going to attach a different message, and that's really what Elevate has done.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we deal with in Hollywood too is, you mentioned this as well, is our identity. We're constantly being flashed images all day long, especially if you're a model or an actress. You go to auditions constantly and you experience rejections. Sometimes nothing to do with you or the way you did, just maybe you weren't the look or whatever, but whether you're an actor, an actress, or you're just even a person that's doing something else in life, whether you live in the society, you are constantly seeing images of skinny, almost perfect looking people, all kinds of things that are pressures on a young person. How do you speak to the young people about their identity to understand and be happy with who they are?
Okay, one of the number one things you have to do to be successful as a young person is you've got to learn to separate who you are from what you do, because those are two totally different things. You mentioned someone who's like a model or an actress. When you're going on an audition or something, and like you just said, 90% of the time, you're the wrong color, wrong height, your hair is wrong, you weren't green enough. I mean, some of the most ridiculous things that they'll come up with that disqualify you from what it is they're trying to cast. you can't take that kind of stuff personally. Now, it's funny because I grew up, it's so apropos because one of the reasons we started Elevate was because I was so insecure as a child, and I always needed attention for all these different reasons. I thought, hey, I'd be great on stage because I'll have an audience, everybody will love me. And the funny thing about that is until you kind of get over that, you're really not that good because people can smell that sort of lack of authenticity or that fakeness about you. The second you stop caring and you realize it's just a job like anything else, then they call you a genius. So it's really kind of ridiculous. But if you are, if you're in the industry, for example, or you have aspirations to do it, you have to be a person of real solid depth and character. You have to have enough on the inside of you. You have to have enough vigor and strength and understanding of your who you are and your identity, so that when that limelight hits you and that pressure comes, you don't implode like so many of these young people in Hollywood do. And so let me just take a second to speak to that for a moment. A lot of times, when you're given unlimited power with zero responsibility, that's really when people hurt themselves. And you see that a lot with a lot of this younger generation of Hollywood that's up and coming. I tell people all the time, fire is great. It's beautiful, it's romantic. You put it on your couch though, that's dangerous. So you have a generation of people that have everything, every resource, every amount of money, every ounce of bling, and they get lost in this sort of tidal wave of what everybody else is telling them to do and be. And so anything that's worth having is worth fighting for, worth working for. When everything's just given to you, you don't care. And so when someone else is assigning to you your identity via that audition or that casting director, that producer, that acting coach, or even your parents, people trying to tell you what you need to be and you don't know, that's when a teen gets very, very conflicted. And so the response to that is to go experiment, go look, go explore. Now here's what I tell people all the time about the modern American teen.
Right.
I talk to a lot of adults and parents that say, my kid is messed up. They're always want to try stuff. I'm like, no. They're supposed to try stuff. That's what's supposed to happen. They are on a journey to figure out at this age who they are. If that energy, like we talked about with the fire, is not channeled, put in its proper place, it will hurt them and everything else around them.
Yeah, and I think there's two catalysts to that, and one is finding purpose, and the other is finding hope. And so how would you translate that to a young person? How do they find their purpose?
If you're a teen today and you're watching this program, you are there is a 50% chance, 50%, that means 1 in 2 chance that you watching this program right now have been exposed to some level of, let's say, pornography. You've experimented with drugs. You've engaged in some kind of sexual act. And I'm not being lewd. These are the statistics of the American teen by today's standards. This is what you've been exposed to. I would say, Todd, that 90% of the time when we get questions afterwards at the presentations, or when we do our show and it's all over and the kids are released to go to lunch, they all stick around. And the reason why is because I think we leverage very effectively one aspect of what we do that most programs and most teen outreach programs and most parents don't do, which is to say to a young person, hey, you may have done all the things that I just said, but that doesn't define who you are. A lot of times kids think, well, I've done this, I've done that, I lost my virginity, I've experimented with this, I'm a girl, and that very, very intimate part of me was taken from me on prom night, now I'm worthless. You should see the way these kids' eyes light up when someone like our America's Next Top Model girl, Brittany Sharon, when she gets up there on stage and she says, hey, you know you're still worth something? Do you know that your life is like a Garmin? Like you had a destination and you kind of went off the exit ramp a little bit early, you kind of got sidetracked and went down an alley that you shouldn't have gone down. You realize that you can kind of, that Garmin, that navigational device of your heart, it can actually turn you back and take you on the direction you were going to go. Brittany's actually the young lady right there in the middle. She's the one, she doesn't really stick out. She's got the real small hair right there. So that's actually our couple members of our team. But when Brittany gets up there and you see this young, tall, beautiful person say, I grew up without a dad, but I made it. I grew up without certain resources, but I made it. I grew up without this or that, but I believed because someone took the time to tell me that I'm worth something, that I could actually do and achieve my dreams. Todd, you wouldn't. They light up like it's like you reinvented the wheel. You gave them water after years of them being parched. It's like they just don't even know what to do with it, and they just want to know everything after that. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean I'm 17? You mean to tell me my life is not over? This montage you're seeing now was actually just our year one program. And these are all the young people in Hollywood that are involved. I'm looking at a host of different artists. I'm looking at a couple of people that are actually on television right now. I'm seeing some models and other actresses. But if you really look, you see the reach of Elevate and its since its inception. We've reached, I estimate, over 100,000 kids by now, just in a combination of all the high schools, all the events and the things like that we've done. And so I find that to be effective and to communicate that message, I think there's a generation out there that's not really interested in listening to middle-aged people talk about sex. They're not particularly interested in listening to their administration, guidance counselor, campus ministers, people like that. No, it's like, you have people that are saying, I have children, / I'm sexually active, even though I might be married.
Right.
Don't have sex. They tune that, because they're like, how do I relate? How do you relate to something like that? But you take a group of people, and I'm talking people that are daily in an industry that essentially hands them anything that is very egocentric and says, you have these opportunities, ethically or otherwise, that you can take. And those kids say, well, wait a second, no, I actually still stand for something. And you take that into a high school. Those kids become inspired. They become educated. But most of all, I think one of the biggest things that is impactful about our program is we're able to sell a positive message but make it entertaining at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, I love to, highlight programs such as Elevate X in the aspect of, you're setting up people for success, and as somebody who is a, counselor myself, we get all kinds of people in our offices, whether they're the most successful lawyer or doctor or producer or writer. And the thing that I always tell people, which is the most interesting thing to me, especially when I first started, is that everybody has gone through issues and has problems. And so when we all understand that none of us are perfect, but we embrace who we are and we understand our identity, and then we get passion towards our future and our purpose and our calling, then I think the sky's the limit. I don't know. What do you think?
I think what it really comes down to is, I'll give you a perfect example. We got invited to do a retreat recently. Usually in the fall, we get a lot of requests to do youth groups, confirmation groups, retreats, things like that. In the springtime is really where we just do all the big, huge assemblies. So this year we went to a school, and it was interesting because myself and one of my other speakers, we went into this venue, and it was a couple hundred sophomore guys from a local high school that were on a retreat. Well, on the same retreat grounds, there was an all-girls school that we knew about and actually are probably going to visit in the springtime. So we're here, we're talking to the gentleman, and I said to them, you're going to think I'm crazy, but there actually is a group of girls in your demographic, in your gene pool, if you will, in your sort of parameter that you basically date from, that do value a definition of manhood that goes like this. Honey, before I knew you, I waited for you, and that's how I proved that I loved you. Will you marry me? Now see, that blows their mind because they're like, well, I want that. And so we go around the room, we say, okay, how many of you guys want to be married? Every hand goes up. How many of you guys want to be divorced? No hands go up. I say, how many of you guys believe that there's a person out there that's willing to wait for you? No hands go up. And I'm like, wait a second. So you want this, but you don't think it exists. Now mind you, I'm talking to a group of all guys.
Yeah.
You should see the look on their face when I say, hey, we just came from an all-girls school. We asked the exact same question. How many girls want to be married? All hands go up. How many girls want to be divorced? No hands go up. How many girls think there's a dude out there right now that's willing to wait for you? That's pretty much the response we get. So then we go outside. Now this is what it's like. This is sad to me because we go outside, we finish up 2 days with these gentlemen, inoculate them, if you will, with all this truth, and they're fired up, they're amped, they're ready to go, redo life on the path that they know they should be on. They're excited about it. We're leaving, and we happen to pass the same group of girls that were also there for a retreat, all girls school, and say, hey, how you guys doing? Like, oh yeah, we're having a good time. We're on retreat. I said, what's kind of the vibe of some of the guys that you guys are hanging out with? Oh, they're dogs. They're this. They're that. I'm like, whoa, wait. I said, would you believe me if I told you that I just got done talking to a group of teenagers your age that are looking for women that have value, some self-worth, that are, you know, going to wait till marriage for sex because that's how they really define love. I said, would you believe me if I told you some of these dudes are really out there? No, that's ridiculous. You're such a liar. That's not even true. That doesn't exist. I'm like, yeah, but let me ask you one more question. I said, if it did exist, would you want it? Yeah. So, I mean, it's this, what we're coming up against, Todd, is one of these, this thing that says, I want this, and this would be ideal, and this would be great, but I don't think it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And so what Elevate tries to do is take that, remove that, essentially that sociological lie that's out there and say, wait, people want this. People are tired of dropping out of high school because they're pregnant. They're tired of, you know, living, you know, on welfare because they've popped out, you know, too many kids or got an STD. Or they're tired of their dreams and that identity going out the window because they've got all these other responsibilities that no teenager should have.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good. And so, you know, tell me like a big success story that you guys have, maybe one teen out there, because I want to hear this kind of thing. Yeah,
one?
And of course about Second Chance too. We want to hear about that.
Second Chance was, it's funny. We had to come up with a name for the year one curriculum. As it stands right now, there's four curriculums, and essentially what we do is we take a freshman, and we do our year one program, and we've developed some programming that now allows us to actually, via social media and into the following year's presentation, actually walk them through a series of speakers, events, and themes that will take them from freshman all the way through senior year. Because what we found was, how can you expect somebody to retain a message when you only are there to drop it one day out of 365 days?
Sure.
So we said, okay, we need to come up with some names for these things. And I think the first sort of curriculum that we came up with, we said, well, what do you think is the number one issue? If we could boil it down to one phrase, what does every teen need to know? And as we kind of looked and we saw everything from the suicide statistics to everything about body image and self-worth, we said, these kids need to know that everything that's happened up until Elevate's walked through their doors doesn't matter. We're going to draw a line in the sand today, we're going to start fresh, and that was the concept of the first year curriculum, which was Second Chance. Well, then we had this crazy idea, let's, you know, write a theme song. So I just happened to pen something one day and said, hey, maybe this will work. And to my shock, people liked it and it worked. And then we actually came up with we had to come up with a slogan for Elevate, which was like, what if we looked at our logo, which is kind of like our dude bench pressing. And it's this idea that, hey, this can be done, but it's going to require some work. And I wanted something kind of organic, but this idea was, we want to take somebody from one place and get them to another. It's this idea of raising up or lifting. So we came up with the idea, or the slogan, it's time to get lifted.
Yeah.
And so from there, just my brain, I said, hey, got to make a song, because every slogan needs a song. So for some reason, someone's gonna. I have this fear, or my assistant has this fear in the office. She's like, I would tell you what everybody wants for lunch, but we're too afraid you're going to write a song about it.
Oh my gosh.
So that was our logo, and we said, I want something that's like kind of cutting edge and modern and 2D, but it's got an action related to it. I don't always kind of come in with some kind of, you know, something that's so esoteric that people don't relate to it. I said, I wanted an image that said, here's where you are, here's where we want you to go. And actually, we looked at all kinds of stuff. We looked at some Da Vinci pieces, and remember the dude in the circle with his arms out? The theme or the name of that, I think, has to do with balance. I thought that's perfect. Every teen needs to find balance, because Elevate's not about telling people what to do, what not to do. We tell these kids all the time, you know, you're the most valuable thing you have. This is not a license to go out and do whatever you want. This is a pathway to freedom.
Yeah. So tell us about your website. We want to know your Facebook, your website. Where can we find you guys on the web?
There is our actual main website is called ElevateX. It's ELEV8 or -X as in Xavier.org. That's the main site. And from there you can get to all the other social media. But if you're on Facebook, it's /ELEV8X. If you're on Twitter, twitter.com /ELEV8X. And also YouTube.com /ELEV8X as well. There are some awesome videos. I mean, we try to do everything top of the line where we know what our audience is looking at every day, and we want something that's compatible and equally as exciting. And so we've done some awesome videos. I encourage you to watch trailer 2 when you get on there, and also watch something we just produced from an outreach called Burgers and Bibles, where we take young people just like you. We go into your high schools, we give you the equipment you need to be successful, and then we ask you, hey, you want to come help some other people just like we helped you, come down to Skid Row, hand out some sandwiches, feed some homeless people, and get a perspective on life outside your little box.
Yeah, highly recommend Burgers and Bibles. Been there myself. Brittany Rashawn, the young lady who's putting it together, is awesome. She's part of Elevate X team, and just amazing woman. You got to check her out as well. I'm sure we'll have her on the show soon. And then as well, why don't you just tell about some of the other team members and what else? Who else you got working with you?
There's a gentleman. The thing is caught. So it's like a wildfire right now. I mean, the movement itself has just taken off. In fact, I was. My secretary called me today, and we've got another 3 presentations that just came in from an event that we did for 6,000 youth last week. Brittany actually spoke at that event. And so she's actually running for Miss California. She was on America's Next Top Model. I've got a gentleman named Trey Moyer who's on, he's recurring now on How I Met Your Mother. There's another guy named Cress Williams who's on Heart of Dixie with Rachel Bilson on the CW. Gosh, there's a gentleman named Hunter Garner who's done a lot of independent movies and things like that. We have several actors and actresses that are on a host of different commercials, ranging from like Subway, Taco Bell, Infinity. I mean, they work all the time, and I'm convinced that the reason they do is because they are taking time out of their lives to sow over here. And I feel like the cosmos or what have you is opening up its doors over here, saying, "Hey, you're a good person, and you're trying to make a difference in the world. So here you go." I wish I could tell you. You wanted a success story about a team.
Yes,
I can give you just as many success stories about our team members whose careers have just taken off. I got a guy right now who, he's in Aspen, Colorado, shooting a movie, who's on our team. And it's not all models and actresses. We've got several entrepreneurs, and but the theme is they're young, and they're focused, and they're pursuing their dream.
Right.
I want to tell you a story about this kid. His name is Matthew Fredette. He's a graduate of a high school in La Cañada. We came into his high school. We did our presentation. He comes up to us, and it wasn't so much a success story initially as it is now. Because initially he said to us, "Why couldn't you guys have come to my school 3 weeks ago? I have gone my whole life with this idea in my head that I was going to wait until marriage for sex. 3 weeks ago, I lost my virginity, and for 3 weeks, I've been basically wanting to kill myself because I've been so miserable. I've been I can't focus. Pretty much feel like my life is over." Well, Elevate embraced this gentleman. We got him to speak at one of our fundraisers. He's like, "I can't speak at your fundraiser." He goes, "I just told you how I failed." I said, "Matthew, you're completely wrong. In fact, I think if you don't speak at this fundraiser, if you don't realize your purpose on this planet, and if you don't grasp the concept that you're designed to go out into the world for your generation, be a mouthpiece and say, 'Don't do this, because this is how it feels.' If you don't do that, I don't think you're ever going to get back on track." Long story short, he comes, he speaks. People are in tears because here's this kid that's testifying to the fact that I wish I would have done this. This is how I feel. This is what I'm doing now. This is my way of giving back. And now his whole career is turned around. He's like this. I kid you not. This is just a testimony as to the type of people that are involved with Elevate. You know, the kid's a cage fighter. He's like a ninja. I tell him all the time, "Hey, we're going down to Burgers and Bibles. Can you come?" No, I was kidding. But his whole life's turned around.
Yeah.
And now he is always ringing me, "Hey, when can I speak next? When can I do this? When can I do that?" That's just one example of the many lives we've had the opportunity to impact.
I love it, man. I love what you guys are doing. And one more time, why don't you give us the website, just in case they didn't get it before, and how they can keep in touch with you guys.
If you go to elevatex.org, ELEV8-X as in Xavier, if you look at the top tab there that the fine young gentleman is highlighting for you, if you go to events or if you go to about, there's a drop-down menu there. If you go to speakers, you can see everybody that's on staff with us. If you go to events, there you go. You see that little tab right down there at the bottom that says Get Involved? There's 2 ways you can get involved. You can actually book an event from the site just by giving us your contact information, whether it be your school, your high school, your church, your youth group, whatever it is. If you want us to get involved and you want to get more information, go there. If you want to be on the team, if you have a passion for speaking to your generation, if you have a skill set, a gift, or if you just want to be heard and tell other people, "Hey, this is what I'm standing for, you should do the same thing," just shoot us an email at info@elevatex.org, or just go to that same Get Involved tab and shoot us a message, and we'll totally connect. And that's pretty much the easiest and fastest way.
Awesome, man. Give us a final thought before we let you go, man. One last thing you'd like to tell people out there.
Young person, When you know what you are worth, you know you're worth waiting for.
There it is. There it is. Anthony Preston, Elevate X, thank you so much for being on the show, man. We appreciate it. And we appreciate you tuning in to Hollywood Alive. We're talking about positive things that are happening in Hollywood. Please tune in again next time. And we are excited to have you following us on Twitter and any way that we can keep in touch with you and be something that maybe gives you a smile in your day and a little bit of happiness here that we can give to you, right?
Exactly, brother.
Anthony, thank you so much, man.
Thank you all.
All right.